Hello and welcome to Hack It. I'm Sakshi, the CEO and founder of Food Hack. In each episode of Hack It, we'll be discussing females, founders, and of course food with some of my favorite people in the world. I've brought together some of my fellow founders to talk about their journeys, the challenges, the highs and lows of being a founder. And of course, we end each episode with a little nugget on food as medicine. I'm super excited to share this with you, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of a podcast called Hack It. With me, Sakshi, I'm the founder and CEO of Food Hack, and I'm joined by a very special guest, a dear friend, and a lovely female founder in a similar space as me, but slightly different, Heinin from Yhangry.
Thank you, Sakshi, so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you again about very exciting topics. I must say, I also really love food hack. And when people say food tech to Yhangry, I just think, oh my God, we are not food tech. But food hack really is food tech. So I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you so much. Heinin and I were recently at this amazing International Women's Day dinner organized by Yhangry with some of their MasterChef chefs. Yummy, delicious food with a table full of 18 female founders and investors. And what a powerhouse that was. And I was lucky enough to be sat next to Heinin, and I loved her energy. And we had some really important topics to discuss that day. And it just felt super natural to just sit right after her and continue the conversation just after the point she made. So we're going to get into a little bit of that later. But let's start by introducing Heinin. Let's tell our users your story and Yhangry and everything.
So, quick note on that. It wasn't quite just luck that placed you next to me. Because I had heard about you from Siddhi and about Food Hack. I was like, oh my God, I'd love to sit next to Sakshi. So, not complete luck. So, I wanted to give that away. Again, so I'm Heinin. I'm one of the founders of Yhangry. Yhangry is a private chef marketplace. So what we do is provide a platform that helps people find a chef for a celebration that they're organizing, whether that is a International Women's Day dinner like we did the other day, or whether it's a birthday, a hen party, a barbecue, and you don't want to necessarily do the cooking yourself. That's when you go on yhangry.com and you can browse 1,000 chefs, actually more than 1,000 chefs across the UK. So you already mentioned some of the great chefs we worked with, such as master chefs who cooked for our International Women's Day dinner. But the motivation came to Siddhi and me when we were working in finance. So we met when we were in sales and trading. And at the time, we were very busy professionals, and we spent a lot of time going out to restaurants after work, meeting friends there. But what we really missed is having friends over at home and having dinner parties, being able to have maybe more meaningful conversations than you might have in public at a restaurant where you have people sitting half a meter away from you, sometimes even less. And we just thought, coming from developing countries, so Siddhi, like yourself, is originally from India, whereas I grew up in China, and I think it's more common to have help at home. So we thought, this is crazy. Why is it now possible for you to book an Uber that shows up in a few minutes? I can book a massage. I can book so many affordable luxury services, but it was hard to find someone to come and cook. So that was the very beginning, and I'd like to say that the inspiration came from laziness to want to do the cooking ourselves.
That's amazing. So tell us about how long has this journey been, and take us through that journey with you.
So you want to hear the whole thing?
I do, because I know there's some really interesting bits in there, including being on TV with Dragon's Den, getting an investment and then rejecting it.
So, oh my God, you're already giving everything away.
I know, which often doesn't happen.
Right. So the idea to start Yhangry came in 2019 when we were still working in finance. And we initially thought we'll do this as a side hustle for a while until our bosses realized that we were focusing a lot more on our side hustle than our main hustle, and took us into a room one day and just asked us about what's going on. And then we left the room, and then Siddhi said, let's resign tomorrow.
Wow.
She is so ballsy. So basically this happened, and then we basically started working on Yhangry full time. And that was right before the pandemic in 2020. So we just quit our jobs, thought we were doing the best thing ever. Then we were not able to operate at all during the lockdown. So I must say the first year or 2 years of Yhangry had been very, very stop and go, like a true roller coaster, where one moment we feel on top of the world, we just got our first chef and our first real customer, and then the next moment it's like, oh my god, you're not allowed to gather anymore, and chefs aren't allowed to go into people's homes. So anyway, that went on for a while, and then we got an email from someone at BBC. And this person was inviting us to basically apply to Dragon's Den. And we, at the time, it was just, I don't know, like right after one of the lockdowns. And we just thought, this must be a fraud. Like, is this a scam? Someone's emailing us to invite us onto this TV show. This is crazy. So we did a bit of research, and then we realized the person is legit, the domain is real. And when we had a chat, it was all confirmed. And we just thought, let's take every shot we get. It's not every day that someone emails you with such a great opportunity and jumps on a call with you. And we obviously had some reservations about, oh, it's like on TV and they rip you apart. We could look bad and it could be embarrassing, but it's amazing to have a partner in crime, like I call Siddhi, and vice versa, because together I feel like we're quite invincible. I don't think we are embarrassed of doing anything that can help our business grow, as long as it's ethical. And we feel like it's more fun to be able to do these things together, and we just think about the positives rather than any risks associated from, let's say, doing this.
That's so amazing. I honestly, I feel a little bit jealous because I don't have a co-founder.
Oh, no.
And, and I tried really hard in the beginning when I also had a side hustle, which was food hack. I was at SoftBank, finance, similar worlds as you. And I was doing this on the side because I was so passionate about this. And I had just solved my own kind of health issues by changing the food around me, not listening to the doctors, looking at clinical research and finding the answers and actually proving it my own body was clinical research.
Yes.
I mean, to reverse a rare liver breakdown when doctors say there's no links with food, but actually you managed to do it with food, right? Clearly, the world needs this. There's more people out there with various other diseases. So that was my passion, and I was doing it on the weekend. And because it was such a feel-good passion, where even my bosses couldn't take me in a room and say, let's sit down and make that decision, because they were like, she's doing something that's actually going to help us,
yes.
right? So this passion, this side hustle kept continuing for a long time, until finally I made the decision to, do this thing full time. But one of the reasons it kept going for a long time is because I was trying to find a co-founder.
Wow.
Because I just thought that how can someone do this on their own? Because, being a solo founder is rare. And then I came across all kinds of people. And every time I met someone as a potential co-founder, we went for walks. Somewhere in my heart of hearts, I felt a compromise where I'm like, I see, I like them. They're so lovely, and I'm sure they'll add value to the business. But do I respect them equally as a co-founder? I don't. And so I know this is going to be a recipe for disaster. So I was never able to pull the trigger. I came so close one time where, we worked together for a long time as an advisor. But then, when it was time to jump ship and, come over full-time operations and, co-founder and all that, we couldn't pull the trigger,
I think what you're saying sounds like it makes a lot of sense, because I think someone really wise told me sometimes deciding not to act is the right decision.
Yeah.
And it really resonated with me, because we are living in this frenzy, like everything's so fast. And especially if you're at a young business, like time is money and runway, and you need to do things fast, make decisions quickly, even on limited data, but have like a confidence level of X. And it's easy to get into, I need to do this, and not take the time to realize actually choosing not to act and not having that bias to action can be the right thing.
100%. 100%. So actually, my learning was that I am enough to build this business, and no one can share my story, my passion, my experience, because, in my case, both my professional and personal, my professional career and my personal story brought me to building Food Hack. It's like I feel that this is my fate, my destiny. I was born to do this. Now to find another human being who was born to do this, right? It's the chances are low, and I'm not going to make a compromise with my baby. And honestly, the day I came to that realization, I've never looked back. And I'm super happy. And, I now, instead of having one co-founder, I now have an amazing founding team.
Yes.
A lot of the early employees, I feel like they have this co-founder mentality. They have, and I'm, because I've spent some time in the US, California, I understand the value of, equity, shareholding, shares, EMI, however you like to put it. It's not a very common concept in the UK. And so I've been a big proponent of pushing equity down people's throats because I'm like, you're not gonna become wealthy with your salaries, no matter how much you earn. Like, I've been at SoftBank on the other end of it. You're gonna get wealthy with your equity. This is your investment.
Yes.
Right? So whether you like it or not, you're not understanding it today, but I owe this to you that tomorrow, when you buy that nice house, you're gonna think of me. So you're gonna have equity.
When Food Hack becomes a unicorn and everyone has an amazing outcome, you want them to feel like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Imagine if they felt like, wow, the company is now valued so much, and wait, what did I get?
Exactly.
Oh, I got a cash salary every month of this. And it is so true. And I heard this quote about buy the shares, not the product. If you want to, it's the one thing, consumerism versus investing and thinking present versus thinking longer term. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with being present and thinking of the present and enjoying the present. However, I think it's actually great paternalism that you are showcasing here by looking after your founding team members or the whole team and making sure that they will hopefully have an amazing financial outcome.
Yeah, I think it's right. Like, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I became one of those European companies on the list. There's a lot of companies who, no, it's not just about unicorn. They go public, they become worth tens of billions of dollars. And like, you have a handful of millionaires. That's it. Whereas if this was Silicon Valley, right, you would have the PayPal mafia, you have the the Facebook mafia building and creating bigger companies afterwards because they have their own money to fund these companies. I mean, look at Elon Musk's story, right? You don't find that here because people, don't have this equity mentality, right? And I'm like, I think everyone investors should make money, founders should make money, but so should the employees who every day with their blood, sweat and tears built this company. Started off in one role, then expanded to the next one, the world of startups. So I couldn't live with myself. And this brings me to a really interesting point around, this commonality we see with female founders, empathy.
Yeah.
I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't hear that often from the male founder communities, right? And I think, it's this is a concept we discussed at the International Women's Day dinner, right? Where we talked about femininity. What is it being feminine? What does it mean to you? And you said something that really resonated with me. You said it means power, right? So I'd love to talk about that because I think to a lot of those females out there who are thinking about entrepreneurship, who are looking for their next idea, who are thinking about starting a company, we live in this world of masculinism where you have to raise money from investors. Majority of the investors are males, right? And so we either lose this feminine side of ours or want to lose it or want to hide it. And I don't think that that's productive, actually. So let's talk about your fundraising story.
Honestly, I think I'd love to mention what you just said about power and my answer on that day, because I just think when it comes to power, people think very one-dimensionally. And actually, when it comes to feminism and feminine power, it's so interesting to be able to actually realize that it is not one-dimensional. And how I see it, and maybe this is from my background growing up in China and being in touch with Chinese medicine and yin and yang, I think you probably know this, but yin is like the feminine side and the feminine power, feminine energy, whatever you want to call it. And yang is the masculine, like the outward, strong, like power energy. And we have both. And what's crazy, what you've described about the masculine energy that we're forced to tap into every day to succeed, whether it's fundraising, whether it's running your business and demanding respect from your team, like it is often the case that we are completely undermining the yin as women. And when it comes to fundraising, I think what's similar between fundraising and, let's say, working in finance, you're talking about investment here, which is a financial topic. And financial topics are usually linked to numbers. And numbers, there's a stereotype that women don't go into STEM because they're not as analytical, not as good with numbers. So much to unpack here. But when it comes to fundraising as a woman, one big realization is that for me, it's important to be able to speak the masculine language and to be able to be impressive on that front, because there's the stereotype of women being weaker on that front. And that is not true in my opinion and my experience either. I've met some really incredible women in the field, but just fewer for some reason. So we can go into that later. But when it comes to fundraising, I think clarity on numbers, demonstrating that you have a very clear mind and you are very analytical and you know where your business is going is super important. And I think we touched upon Dragon's Den earlier. And one of the most famous scenes from our episode is when I answered back to Peter Jones about justifying our valuation. And he basically said, "Oh, what do you mean? So if you are making 25 million a year and you're taking 10%, 2.5 million, you think you can be valued at your turnover?" It's a quote. It was something like that. And I looked at him. I just thought, well, yeah, it would be 10x of our profit of 2.5 million. I think that's a reasonable valuation. And he was really silent for a few seconds. And he was like, actually, that makes sense. And everyone burst out laughing. And I was at I spoke at this event the other day, and the person who organized the event actually brought back that scene, which is why it's so fresh in my memory. And everyone in, like, all the dragons were like kind of applauding it and celebrating it, because it's not every day that Peter Jones gets a good rebuttal to his question about numbers. And that is one example of how both Siddhi and I, having worked in finance, are able to give investors, many investors being male, the confidence that if they give us money, we know how we're going to spend it and we know what we're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a really good advice. I mean, this is my agenda for 2024. We are in 2024, right? Yeah.
You might already be in 2025.
No, I think I am. I'm just thinking like, yeah, but I think we're going to be in the US in 2025. So no, we are 2024. Okay.
Yes.
But actually, this is my big agenda for Food Hack, because we have now, 27 employees. We are, majority female. We are a very diverse team. the males, the rest of the males that we have on the team, they're very diverse. They come from different cultures, different languages. And I think we learn a lot from each other being super diverse. It was always my dream to have diversity in my business, respecting each other's cultures, learning from them, bringing different ideas to the table and making sure we have the best idea to back. And I think it just makes it so much fun. Anyway, I'm diverting. But my big agenda for the team is numbers. I want everybody to get comfortable with numbers, whether it's a graphic designer who's found, 2 boxes for Easter launch. I need to understand, it's not about, hey, one costs 500, one costs like 700. No, let's go deeper, right? 500 for how many?
Yes.
What is it per box, right? And what do you recommend?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's my big agenda that even for those who don't touch numbers, I think numbers is a language, by the way. It's like English. It's like a love language for me. So
send me a spreadsheet and I'll love you.
Yeah. And like when you talk numbers to me, talk numbers to me. That's when you have my heart. But
getting
I think
goosebumps right now.
Yeah, but it's not something I was born into, to be honest. Like I studied biotech. Right? So very much into microbiology and, all of that. And I think it's something I gained over time. As I started working at Pfizer, it was still very much a non-number game where I was doing clinical trials and regulatory affairs. I had a portfolio of drugs. Again, very non-number. Right? But then there was this curiosity of, okay, I've got X, Y, and Z in my portfolio, but like we've lost the patent on this. So it's not like I'm making shit ton of money on these drugs. They're such problematic grandfather drugs. Like I'm constantly writing new regulatory applications to whatever agency to try and fix the problems we have with it, right? So I'm curious to know how much money it makes. So I would go to the sales and marketing team. I would try to find out how much money does it cost us, to have this on the market, and how much money does it actually make, So and then I happened to be at a conference. And I tried to sell that drug because I realized that it wasn't making us any money, and came back to my manager and my manager said, can you please just do your job so that I can just do my job and go home? Like, please, and I was like, I'm going to keep getting into trouble because I have this keenness or this curiosity towards business, but I never studied it. So that took me to Wharton MBA to the East Coast. And the reason I chose Wharton, that's the only school I got into. That was the best school I could get into. But the only reason, I was so hell-bent on, choosing Wharton was the heavy focus it has on finance, numbers. It was the heaviest focused on finance. And that's something I hadn't done, And I managed to get in. I was very different to everybody else. It was my first time studying in America, first of all, because I had studied in India. I'd studied in the UK. And India used to be a British colony. So we have a lot of overlaps, in culture and language. And it's familiar. America was, definitely out of my comfort zone, where, it's a whole different art of storytelling. There is a lot of... it's land of capitalism. I love it, by the way, just putting it out there. But there's a lot of sharp elbows, especially if you go to a school like Wharton. You are now studying in between sharks. It's next level, right? And my first 6 months were horrible because, and this is what I actually find a lot in the British founder community as well. It reminds me of myself in the first 6 months of Wharton, where there is this humility in Britain. I see it. My kids go to school in England, and I love it where, they wear their uniforms. They have to, when my son walks into school, the headmaster's on the gate and he has to shake hands and look them in the eye, and say, good morning. I love that discipline, right? But at the same time, the education system has this like funny self-deprecating humor that kind of gets ingrained in you. And it's a sign of humility. But I think it accumulates over time. And I think as a founder, you reach a point where, there is only a certain pool of capital that we all have access to, right? You'll be raising from Silicon Valley investors. right? And so you have these British founders who are like super humble, and there's this self-deprecating humor going around. And suddenly, as an investor, I'm like, so why should I
But there are
invest
these
in you?
American sharks at the same
Exactly. No, so you have like so let's discuss this, because I've lived this as an investor, right? I used to be an investor, and so yeah, you have this American entrepreneur, and
uber confident
Exactly.
and
beating
honestly
their
just like
chest.
pounding. Yes,
Exactly. Like, and I think the one thing like American schools do really well, the education system, is they start introducing the art of storytelling very early on, which by the way, I think is the most important art to have in today's day and age, and especially for females, for female founders, right? And so yeah, here you are as an American entrepreneur, telling your story in such a crisp and concise and beautiful way, where it's like you are guns and roses and really kind of exaggerating all your achievements, and then you have the British entrepreneurs, right? And then you have the female entrepreneurs, where it's even worse, where it's like you're just really underplaying your achievements and things like that. But I just want to ask a question. What if you were on the other side of the table and you were the investor? Who would you put your money behind? The confident, I'm confident and these are my achievements and this is why I'm going to do this and this is how I'm going to make you 100-bagger for your money. Or, this sweet, humble person saying, I'm not sure if I can really get there, but I'll try my best.
oh my god,
What would you do?
honestly it is so sad that this is really the case and the attitudes are like this, because it is so much easier to have confidence in someone who has confidence themselves instead of trying to back someone who doesn't believe their own vision or who doesn't have a big enough vision. So I think what is really fun between like the US and the UK, and one investor mentioned it, in the US everyone says they have an insane company and I need to figure out between the lines who's shit.
Yeah.
And then in the UK, people are all having mediocre companies
Yeah.
and you need to figure out between the lines who's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really is like a completely different lens
Yeah.
of looking at things. And I completely agree that women tend to fall into the British approach and the British like attitude, or even weaker than that sometimes.
Yeah, and I think this is my big fundraising tips, or big fundraising tip for, entrepreneurs, especially female founders, is, I'm sorry guys, art of storytelling. If there is a book on it, read it. If there is a podcast on it, hear it. If there is like practice it every day. The art of, so I want you to put a timer on, and the timer should have 5 minutes. You introduce yourself, and every good thing you've done, every piece of achievement, everything that links you to today, to your story, to why you've built this company, right, needs to go in there. It needs to include all your achievements, and you should celebrate that, right? And the humility, keep it for your friends, keep it for your family, keep it for your employees, right? This goes back to being feminine and that power, right? And having that yin and the yang. You have the masculine, you have the feminine, right? Recognize your power. Like, our superpowers as a female founder is that we are empathetic, is that we are sensitive. I know I am. We care, whether it's for our employees or it's for our home, our kids, our families, our friends. Anyone we meet, we connect with, we care. We care about our product. We care about everybody and everything. And we tend to take on responsibility. Right? We have to be very careful.
So much responsibility because we have, historically, right? Females were, had the responsibility, right? In the hunter-gatherer eras and things. So, and it's sort of genetically passed on to us today, where we're not hunter-gatherers. But still, we feel responsible for everything. Whilst the men are out hunting, it's like everything needs to keep running.
Correct. Yeah, we need to plan. Like, should we have kids? When should we have kids? We need to plan for our homes, and we like it a certain way, and we like to plan, and I think that's nice, and I think we need to embrace it, and I think we need to face it, but we also need to be very protective and careful about the time we take out for ourselves, because it's not okay amongst all these responsibilities for us to be at the back of our queue for our own selves.
Honestly.
Right? This is why I told you the other night,
Yes.
bath.
Oh my God, and I loved it.
Yeah, like I have now made it a part of my weekly routine. So I do like 4 or 5 things. I have come to realize that I have a big mission and I have big responsibility on my shoulder. And that is to build Food Hack and to change the food that we are surrounded by. So it's better for people's health, giving longevity back in your hands, and it's better for the planet. Now, to build such a big business, right, I have a process and I need to respect that process. And that process includes meditation. Doesn't have to be in the morning. It used to be in the morning and I used to be so hard on myself. Why do I want to sleep extra half an hour? You know,
feel so much better if you get up and then do something and you'll already feel like you've accomplished something in the day.
True. But at the same time, sleep is a part of my process. And I realized that. So I'm like, it's okay. I'm going to be kind to myself. If I need to sleep, I will sleep. I will miss meditation in the morning. But instead, I'm going to journal 5 minutes, right? Quickly, like my gratitude journal.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Alex, that reminds me we should get him on this podcast because he has this lovely feminine energy to him, you know, which we should talk about. But I do my journal. I meditate sometimes at night, and it's so beautiful to meditate at night after my kids are in bed. And peace, and you have the best sleep. Sleep is a part of my process. I need to get 7 to 8 hours. So if that means avoiding alcohol at night, you know, I have to stick to it.
You need to do what's right for your body.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't function 100% the next day.
Yeah, especially with all these networking events we have to go to. Learn to say no.
Yeah.
Right? Food is a part of my process.
Yeah.
You know, of course. And movement is a part of my process. So wherever I go, I have surrounded myself with treadmills. I have a walking desk at home. I have a treadmill at the office. Like, I like to walk and talk. And I love to see 20,000 steps, you know. And now it's once a week having a bath. So this is time.
And I've copied that one.
Yes. This is time for myself, to me, you know, amongst all the responsibilities that I have. And I try and stick to it. And I've seen it's really, really helped me.
You need to do these things to help yourself to be able to perform at your best.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens to women a lot more than men is we get pulled in so many directions. We multitask so much and we don't preserve a core amount of time to look after ourselves, to make sure that we can be at our peak. And this happens because we are so good at juggling a million things, so much better than men on that front. The one time me and my husband swapped responsibilities because we thought we didn't have equal responsibilities, everything got dropped. We didn't get groceries for a week. And a bunch of stuff just didn't happen because, yes, he might be doing bigger tasks than I do. But as women, you just naturally end up picking up so many little things that men sometimes don't even notice. And that was such an amazing exercise, just to swap responsibilities for a bit and for the other person to realize, oh my God. And for me also to realize, oh my God, this is one big thing. So I am super, super guilty of just taking on these things. Of course I can say yes to this. And of course I'm responsible and let me do it. And then what gets squashed is always your own time. The time for you to actually reflect, rebalance, think about yourself. I think one thing, and why I was so excited to come today as well, is I love how reflective you are and that you take these times, and you've inspired me already to obviously like have a bath. I haven't done it every week yet. I've only done it once, but still. But what I love is spending time with people who have that growth mindset, and especially women who have this, women who are in tune with themselves, because not every woman is in tune with themselves and their femininity. And I actually feel like you really do have that feminine confidence and that feminine power, and I feel like you are very aware of it, and that is super inspiring, because I think it's really important for us not just to push on the yang that we have, that brash, like aggressive energy, but also realize sometimes we can achieve more by tapping into that feminine energy that actually helps us be more effective. And I got that feeling when I was speaking with you.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And I think, I would love to share my journey to get there because, I was an investor for just shy of a decade, right? So you have barely any female investors. So you're surrounded by men. I used to always be the different looking one on the table, right? Whether it's the color of my skin or it's my gender, I was always the different one. Sometimes I've been asked to make a coffee because they thought I was the PA.
Oh my God.
Good luck getting money from me, But I thought, I've lived through that era, and I'm sure you have too, with, surrounded by the sort of bro jokes, wanting to conform, going along with it, and then feeling shitty about it, saying that wasn't funny, actually. Objectifying women is not funny. So, you go through that so many times. You want to be a part of that whole culture because there is no other world but just that. And then you do it a few times and you're like, it doesn't feel right to me. It's not okay. Why are female looks being talked about before, their capabilities? But men looks don't get talked about before their capabilities when a male and female are interviewing.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, and I'm going to say something. So I think as you grow older with age, this happened to me previously where we were starting out. So SoftBank, I was like pretty much part of the founding team because we were just a handful of investors. And then, Vision Fund came. When I joined, there were a handful of investors. And then from handful, we became to hundreds of investors. So, I saw that growth story, and I was like the first female investor in the London office. And I was the first one to get pregnant and to have a kid. And I never really took a proper maternity because I was in the middle of some deals and I felt responsible to those founders to make sure that those deals go through. So I was breastfeeding and they had to create this separate room for me for breastfeeding. So it was all...
wow.
It was all, first time and all of that. And I was... And one of my prerogatives was to build out the team, and I wanted to have more females, and I remember one of my male colleagues going into the interview room and, actually before going into the interview room, turns around to me and say, with a CV in her hand saying, yeah, I hear she's really hot. I'm looking forward to this. I will never forget that. I looked at him and I said, when did you say that about a male colleague? It's unacceptable.
Yeah. Wow.
And so you kind of live through these, you learn through these, you say to yourself, never again to these, right? And then I think last year, while at Food Hack, was a really interesting year because I think we launched so many amazing products. We did so much, achieved so much. There was so much going on that I think it just wiped me physically, mentally, emotionally, to the point of a breakdown. Right? And I think that's what really forced me on this path of self-reflection of, who am I and what lies ahead of me?
Yeah.
I want that clarity, and taking out some time, gave me that clarity that actually who I really am. Okay, I've grown up in masculinity because I had to survive and I had to have my voice heard and it had to be louder than yours for it to be heard. Right? And so that's that masculine side that worked for me then. But in reality, I am sensitive, I'm empathetic, I'm endearing, I care. And that's who I want to have in the driving seat. But I have these dragons that come out when you try to come in the way of building a good business ethically. And those dragons will come out. And I think that combination is very powerful for me.
Honestly, it is such a great depiction of that female power that you now have, where you're now really just endearing, but the dragon is always within. And I love seeing that. I'm literally just like, oh my God, is there going to be some smoke coming out of your nostrils? I was actually really curious now because you mentioned obviously previously you were following your masculine energy and it's worked for you throughout your life. And now you, after the breakdown, have realized there's another side that I want to leverage or tap into. And is there something like a situation that you clearly would approach differently now versus before?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I approach everything, differently in my personal life, in my professional life. You will have you will have, males working in your business because, the food production side of things is very heavily male dominated. It's because things are heavy. You have to lift. You have to be on your
Oh
feet
my
all
God.
day.
Literally today, I was speaking to some of our chefs in our community app, and someone asked about, oh, how many female chefs do we have? And I only realized today that we actually have quite a lot of female chefs, more than the average. Restaurants have less than 20% female chefs,
Correct.
whereas we have almost 30.
Wow.
And it was only a small win because the margin is not that much bigger, but it made me feel like, wow, we are better than
Good.
average,
Yeah.
and we want to become even better. But back to your point, in a cooking environment, in a commercial kitchen, when you're producing food, your point about heavy and so on, it is easier for men to lift things.
It is.
And back to your point.
It is. That is one of the biggest reasons why we have more men. But you have a lot of alpha personalities, ego-driven personalities, and I think like knowing who you are, like having your feminine side in the driving seat with these guys, especially, I think it's a very effective way of leadership, of management. It's very productive versus having a masculine, because trust me, like you were saying before, right? They're bigger than you. They have more testosterone than you. You're never going to win that game of masculinity with a man, right? But what you have that they don't have is your superpower, right? Of your feminine side, which makes you empathetic, which makes you hear their point, which makes you acknowledge to them, I hear you, I feel you. But, you know what I mean? So I think a lot has changed for the better. I feel really good. So I would really encourage all female founders to not be afraid of embracing their feminine sides. Now, I wanted to share a quick nugget on food as medicine, because like we discussed before, females, we do so much that we never have time to look after ourselves. So with our AI engine, we found a really interesting anti-breast cancer tip. We're all coming to that age where we have to be careful and look after ourselves and do these checks. Pomegranate
Oh, wow.
is a great fruit to add in your
I love
diet.
pomegranate.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, then
I don't love peeling it.
Yeah. Well, apparently you can take the peel and just like blitz it and put it in your coffee. Like even the peel has like anti-inflammatory benefits.
Wow.
Yeah, it's high in fiber, it's an antioxidant, and yeah, it's anti-breast cancer, guys. You can do a lot of things with it. The peel, it actually contains like flavonoids and it's a polyphenol, and you can put it in boiling water to make tea out of it.
Wow. We got me a boiling water.
You've got your boiling water. There
Yes,
you go.
exactly.
You could have just thrown the peel in there.
Boiling water.
Yeah. We have come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For your time. No, this was amazing. We could have gone on for hours.
I know.
Thank you for listening to Hack It. I hope you enjoyed the insights and stories that we shared today. Are you hungry for more? Follow us on Instagram at The Food Hack. That's a hack without a C. Or subscribe now to be the first to hear about our next episode when it drops. See you next time.